Dwayne's father was not just a minister. He came down out of the mountains with people coming to work in the textile business. This was the beginning of the Depression. You couldn't survive on a farm anymore. And these people came down to do what was called public work. Go to work for somebody and could pay them a salary. It was a hard scramble life. He would start a church, get it going good, and move on to the next little community for people that had come down. And that went on for years. And he was a fundamentalist Baptist minister, tough kind. His mother was something different. She nursed him at her breast while she was operating the loom in the textile business. And she kept food on the table that a preacher couldn't do. It was a rough way to grow up. And he grew up as a strong young man. He got a football scholarship to Lenore. He played Friday night on the JVs and Saturday afternoon on the varsity. And it instilled in him an active dislike of organized sports. To my knowledge, he never went to a sporting match of any kind. Anyway, he was so disgusted with the whole process. When he went to Korea, he was put in charge of a little newspaper. And they could write it all in Korea, but he had to fly to Japan to get the typeset. Well, the typesetters were little Japanese gnomes. If you've ever watched anybody set type one letter at a time, and they clicked incredibly fast at it. And there was only one trouble. They didn't speak English, and they didn't read English, but they could read the letters. So when they reached up for an N, when they saw the N on the letter, they would reach up and get an N. There was one trouble. An N, an upside down N and a U look almost exactly alike. And his copy that he brought back, the printed copy, had some of the weirdest typos in it. When he went to Chapel Hill as a student, after he came back from Korea, he stayed around for a while, not really very excited about what he was learning. And this fellow named Jim Shoemaker, who was over at the Des Moines Herald, persuaded Dwayne that he could learn more journalism doing it than he could studying it. So he quit and went to work for the Des Moines Herald, and that eventually led him to Charlie Brown, who was smart enough to pick him up. There was one particular thing that he wrote about. It was a little different. It wasn't the ordinary kind of investigative report. He wrote about the Ku Klux Klan. This was not a bunch of goofballs down in eastern North Carolina. These were really dead set Klansmen. Later on, they went up to Greensboro and got in a shooting match and shot a bunch of communists. All that was sensational, but they were tough. When Dwayne got interested in it, he had a source inside the Klan. They didn't much care for that, and Dwayne was the only newspaper man I ever knew that had a cross burned in his yard when they found out that he knew stuff. Well, the FBI used to come by regularly to kind of pluck his mind. They couldn't find out what he could find out. And the saddest part of that is the book disappeared. He kept all his notes in a cardboard box underneath his desk. A lot of newspapers do that sort of thing. And one day he came to work and the box was gone, forever lost. And people said that the janitor threw it out. I've never been sure whatever happened to it. It made a wonderful book. He wrote, as has been noted, 2 books. Chicken Bone Specialist was just a super book. And Safari, when it first came out, it became part of the reading list of every college sociology class in the whole United States. It was standard reading for sociology students. I don't know whether that's true anymore or not, but it should be. It's a wonderful book. And it's about black people. And there was great interest in the black people of eastern North Carolina picking up and going north to find a better life. Kidwell is about white people, and it never was the success that Chicken Bone Special was. Although, in my mind, the writing of it is just as good. And these were people that he had known, the mountain people, he had known as a child. And I think he had a special importance for them. I met a number of students of Dwayne Walls. Not just as college students, but the ones he coached and taught, either as a writing coach or students he had known here. He frequently placed them in jobs. He and Shoemaker were the two masters of finding a place for some young writer. And then he would go and work with them on their writing. And the ones I talked to just swore by it, said that was the greatest teaching experience they ever went through, was to have him sit there beside a CRT or a typewriter and say, why don't you say it? Why don't you make that an active verb instead of a dead verb? That was the kind of teaching that he did. I recognize that. The houses he built, I think, always were a reflection of the way he grew up with poor people. And he worked in housing for poor people. There was not only in Siler City, but a little community outside of Chapelville called Fine. And I know in particular there were 4 houses, those are the worst houses you ever saw in your life. Well, there were mill houses that had gone downhill. And they were rebuilt, and now, last I heard, they're almost all occupied by Chapel students who were willing to drive that distance to live in those houses. He got him a horse farm, and one horse ran into a tree and caused damage that hurt him for the rest of his life. He went to pain clinics, all sorts of it. Really tore him up. He bought a boat and it sank. Right beside the pier. Yeah. He started the newspaper and it had the same fate as the boat. He loved homes, houses. In Southport, he had 2 houses at one time. At Beach Mountain, he was either owner or part owner or something of 3 houses. That's 5 houses. When Faye and I moved to Charlotte, we've been there since 1953, and we've had 3 houses all total. That didn't count the places where he lived. These were just houses he was interested in. He was a great reporter. He was a sometimes business partner for me. I rebuilt one of those vinyl houses. He was a friend of 50 years. And I've been missing him since that last phone conversation when it was clear that Alzheimer's was taking over.